Dan, from talking with your team, we're having more and more conversations at C-level within our customer base around not just risk to the organisation or the end customer around data regulation, but also individually how it impacts the CSOs, the CEOs, really anybody within the C-suite of these organisations. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, we've seen that due to the potential reputational damage from a company perspective, that there's been a huge drive to try and cover up and not declare data breaches, which has then led to CISOs and C-suite officers being directly held liable from a legal perspective for that action of not disclosing a significant data breach.
There's a company in Finland who was a psychotherapy organisation and obviously held lots of highly sensitive information for all of their clients. Unfortunately, they had a data breach, and the CEO had decided the network security team would be capable of dealing with that situation. So all of the security was put down to just the network team. Now, obviously, a data breach is a bad day at the office for the network team. They have to go and do the retrospective activities to fix it. But unfortunately for the organisation, because they had a data breach, they had to tell the regulators that that breach had happened, because they hadn't protected the data itself and they'd exposed their customers' data to the public internet in this case. They were subject to fines. Now, the CEO felt that he personally was protected because he'd handed over responsibility to the network security team. Unfortunately for him, the regulator disagreed and decided that he'd been negligent in his duty as a CEO, and the CEO was handed a 3-month suspended jail sentence. As a result of that, he was fired from his position and will never be able to hold the position of CEO again. The organisation had resulting fines from the regulator. They also had fines in a class action suit from their own clients. As a result, that business terminated and was purchased by one of their competitors. So the responsibility and the liability for a single data breach can have far-reaching consequences, both reputationally to the business and personally to the individuals.
Yeah, so that's been taken one step further just this week, with the SEC announcing that they're going to be mandating that organisations must disclose data breaches within 4 days. And that's designed to protect institutional investors and markets, because as we know, material data breaches can have a significant impact on the company reputation, and therefore by default the valuation and the stock price.
Yeah, but you can have a data breach but not have the resulting impact of an open data breach. So if you look at the process flow they have to go through, so yes, they've got to announce that they've had a data breach to the regulators within the required number of days, but the regulator will come back to them and say, yes, you registered that you had a data breach, but was that data in the clear? Was it visible to a third party that shouldn't have had access to it? If the answer to that question is no, it was protected by a solution such as Certes, that's the end of the story. That's where the regulator is happy that, yes, you had a data breach, that's a network security problem you need to fix, but you've not made available any of the data, you've not compromised the data that you retain ownership of. Unfortunately, if you haven't protected the data, the process continues through to whose data did you release? Have you informed those individuals? Those individuals can then take their own legal action against the organisations, as well as the regulator taking legal action against the company that's lost the data. Then the board of directors need to be informed, because it will have a reputational impact against the business. The shareholders, if it's a public company, again will have to be informed, and there'll be another further impact potentially to the organisation's share price. So the actual announcement of a data breach is the start of the process, but that process can be finished very quickly if the data is already protected by something like Certes.
So I think the positive there is that organisations that take a proactive approach to data protection, they can acknowledge that yes, there may be a risk around network compromise, but a network compromise doesn't necessarily lead on to a data breach. And yes, if a network compromise happens, they have to go through the process of notifying the relevant regulatory bodies. But at that point, they can also say that any data that was taken was actually in a form where it was rendered useless, because only they as a data owner have access to the keys that have been used to protect that data. So whilst yes, it's uncomfortable that data has left the environment that it was meant to be in, it was exfiltrated to a third party, they can be sure that no end user details were compromised through the fact that they can demonstrate that at all times that data was protected or encrypted using policies that they defined, using keys that only they have access to.